Hello, night traveler. This is Lunas, your dream teller for magical nights. Snuggle into your blanket and let your imagination run wild as we embark on enchanting and fantastical tales. Tonight, our stories revolve around Aloan, a young elf with a grand destiny called to save Bride Forest from an ancient threat. On a journey filled with challenges, she faces shadowy creatures and finds unexpected allies, from forging dwarves to majestic unicorns. But when an evil force, Dorkadas, threatens to destroy everything she loves, Aloan fights with all her might. Will courage and magic be enough? Ready to dream? In ancient era, the majestic and enigmatic Bride Forest stood as a sacred refuge where magic infused every leaf and stone. In the early morning hours, a gentle mist enveloped the ancient trees, creating an ethereal veil that shimmered under the soft light of the rising sun. The sturdy trunks, adorned with moss and lichen, rose like columns of a natural temple, guarding ancestral secrets. Crystal-clear rivers meandered through the forest, their pure waters reflecting the lush vegetation. It was said that these rivers were blessed by the Celtic gods, offering visions of the future to those who bathed in them. Hidden clearings, adorned with vibrant wildflowers, were places of rare beauty where nature displayed its glory. Druids, the wise ones of Celtic culture, performed rituals on full moon nights, dancing around crackling bonfires and chanting ancient hymns. These mystical ceremonies were moments of deep connection with the spiritual world, seeking guidance and balance. The flames cast dancing shadows on the trees, creating a hypnotic spectacle that fascinated everyone present. Celtic culture was rich in myths and traditions, firmly believing in the interconnectedness of all things. Every tree, river, and mountain was considered sacred, endowed with a soul and purpose. Stories of the Tuatha De Danann, the fairy people, and legendary heroes like Cuchulainn and Fiann Mac Cumhaill were passed down from generation to generation, inspiring courage and wisdom. Bride Forest, in particular, was a sanctuary for mystical creatures. Elves, fairies, and other supernatural beings inhabited its depths, living in harmony with nature. The elves, with their ethereal beauty and magical abilities, were known for their wisdom and connection to the natural world. They lived in hidden communities, protected by enchantments that kept intruders at bay and preserved the purity of their home. The trees in the forest were not just plants but living beings that shared secrets with those who knew how to listen. The deep roots of ancient trees intertwined, forming an underground network of communication and mutual support. The leaves whispered stories to the wind, and birds sang songs that echoed through time. The forest was a living, breathing organism where every element played a crucial role in maintaining the ecosystem's balance. The Druids, in their white robes and oak staffs, were the guardians of this ancient knowledge. They taught young apprentices the art of healing with herbs, reading omens in the stars, and performing rituals that maintained harmony between worlds. Seasonal celebrations, like Beltane and Samhain, were moments of renewal and reflection, where the veil between worlds became thinner and mortals could glimpse the spiritual realm. In the heart of the forest stood an ancient and sacred tree, known as the Tree of Life. Its deep roots extended to the center of the earth, while its high branches touched the skies. It was a pilgrimage site for all magical beings who came to seek wisdom and renewal. Around the Tree of Life, stones were arranged in a perfect circle, used by the Druids in their most sacred rituals. The forest was also home to many enchanted creatures. Fairies, with their shimmering wings and melodic laughter, danced in circles in moonlit clearings. Majestic and pure unicorns roamed freely, their presence bringing peace and healing. The ancestral spirits of ancient Celtic warriors guarded hidden paths, ready to guide and protect those who showed courage and a pure heart. Aloan, a young elf of extraordinary beauty and grace, was one of the most beloved inhabitants of Bride Forest. Her golden hair cascaded in soft waves down to her waist, reflecting sunlight like liquid gold threads. Her deep blue eyes, reminiscent of the dawn sky, were full of curiosity and wisdom. She was the daughter of Aelil, the chief of the forest elves, and Niamh, a renowned healer whose potions and remedies were famous for their curative properties. From a young age, Aloan showed a special connection with nature. She could hear the whispers of the trees and understand the stories the wind brought from distant lands. Her natural gifts made her a beloved figure among the elves, and her kindness and compassion made her a loyal and trustworthy friend. Eloin spent her days exploring the forest, always in search of new discoveries and knowledge. Her father, Aelil, was a wise and respected leader, known for his justice and courage. He ruled the elven community with a firm but gentle hand, always seeking the well-being of his people. Niamh, her mother, was a woman of great wisdom and skill, whose delicate hands could heal the deepest wounds with her potions and ointments. Together, they formed a pillar of strength and security for Eloin. Despite her seemingly perfect life, Eloin felt a growing restlessness in her heart. She knew there was more to the world beyond the forest she loved so deeply. She dreamed of adventures and journeys in unknown lands where she could test her skills and learn more about the world and herself. Although she loved her family and home, Eloin knew she was destined for something greater. Her days of exploration and learning were often interrupted by visions and premonitions she couldn't ignore. She felt that something was about to happen, something that would change the course of her life forever. These visions filled her with a mix of excitement and apprehension, making her anxious for what the future held. One of these visions was particularly intense. Eloin saw a threatening shadow looming over the forest, an evil force seeking to destroy the balance and harmony of her home. This vision haunted her for days until she finally decided to share her concerns with her father. Aelil, though worried, recognized the seriousness of Eloin's vision and began preparing the community for the possible threat. Niamh, in turn, reinforced the protected enchantments around the village and prepared new healing potions. She knew that Eloin's journey was just beginning and that her daughter would need all the help she could get. Niamh spent long hours with Eloin, teaching her the secrets of herbs and protection magic, ensuring she was well prepared for any challenge. Determined to protect her home and people, Eloin began preparing for the journey she knew was inevitable. She trained hard, honing her combat and magic skills, and said goodbye to her friends and family. The forest she loved so deeply now seemed full of omens and signs of a greater destiny. It was on one of these peaceful mornings that Eloin's life changed forever. While walking along a familiar trail, she felt a strange presence in the forest. Following her instincts, she found an injured creature by a stream. It was a raven, a sacred animal in Celtic mythology known to be a messenger of the gods. Its black eyes shone with uncommon intelligence, and it seemed to be trying to communicate something. Eloin approached cautiously, feeling the urgency in the raven's aura. Upon touching it, a wave of energy coursed through her, and she had a vision as clear as crystal. She saw a dark figure, a threat looming over Bride Forest and its people. The vision showed an evil force seeking to destroy the balance and harmony of the forest, spreading darkness and desolation. Eloin knew she couldn't ignore this call. The protection of her home and people depended on her. Determined to face the threat, she ran back to her village and told her father about the vision. Aelil, though worried, recognized the importance of Eloin's mission and gave her his blessing. Niamh prepared potions and amulets to protect her on her journey, filling a small bag with magical items and words of encouragement. With her heart full of courage and determination, Eloin set out on her journey. She knew she would face many challenges and dangers, but was ready to fight for what she loved. She left Bride Forest behind, following the call of destiny that led her to unknown lands. Her journey was just beginning, and the fate of the Celtic world depended on her bravery and wisdom. Eloin's first steps outside the forest were marked by a mix of fear and excitement. The wind howled through the bare trees, their somber voices seeming to whisper warnings and portents of lurking dangers. Despite the difficulties, Eloin did not give up. Her determination and willpower kept her moving. She advanced cautiously, feeling each step sink into the sticky mud. Her feet were heavy, and the cold moisture penetrated her boots, making the walk even more exhausting. With every step, she remembered her father Aelil's words, who had always taught her never to give up in the face of adversity. It was then that she encountered a group of shadow creatures, malevolent beings that fed on fear and despair. They emerged from the mist, surrounding Eloan and blocking her path. Their eyes glowed with cold malice, and their cruel smiles revealed sharp fangs. Eloan felt a chill down her spine but refused to give in to fear. With a fierce gleam in her eyes, she raised one of the amulets her mother had given her. The amulet's light shone intensely, dispersing the shadows and revealing the creature's true forms. They recoiled, frightened by Eloan's courage and power. However, the battle had only just begun. The shadow creatures were numerous and persistent, attacking in waves, trying to wear down her resistance. Eloan brandished her sword, her movements precise and graceful as she faced the creature's attacks. Each blow was a fight for survival, and she knew she could not afford to make a mistake. She knew she was leaving behind everything she knew and loved, but the promise of discovering new worlds and facing great challenges motivated her. The landscape before her was unknown and full of mysteries, each hill and valley promising adventures and dangers. As she walked, Eloan met an old druid named Brianane who lived reclusively in a cabin in the forest. He shared ancient stories and forgotten knowledge, revealing secrets about the origin of the evil threatening Bride Forest. Brianane spoke of an ancient prophecy mentioning a young elf with special powers who would save the forest from great darkness. Eloan felt a shiver as she realized the prophecy was about her. The druid gave Eloan a special amulet, saying it would protect and guide her on her journey. Grateful, Eloan left with renewed determination, knowing she was not alone. She continued her walk, each step taking her further from home and closer to her destiny. The landscape changed from dense forests to open fields and towering mountains, each new view filling her with wonder and hope. The first days of travel were peaceful, but soon the calm gave way to unforeseen challenges. Eloan found herself in marshy terrain where trails were treacherous and the environment hostile. Each step was a struggle against the muddy ground, and the growing darkness of the forest made it difficult to find her way. The creatures howled in pain when her blades met their ethereal bodies but continued to advance, determined to bring her down. With each strike, Eloan felt her strength waning, but her determination remained unwavering. However, victory came at a cost. Eloan was exhausted and wounded from the battle. She found refuge in a small cave, where she used her mother's healing potions to treat her wounds. While resting, she reflected on the nature of the enemy she faced. She realized the threat was greater than she had imagined and that she would need all the help she could get to triumph. Inside the cave, Eloan found ancient symbols carved into the walls. These glyphs told the story of past battles, where Celtic heroes and heroines had faced dark forces to protect the land. Inspired by these stories, Eloan felt her courage renewed. She knew she was following in the footsteps of many who had come before her, and that the fight for light and justice was an essential part of her legacy. The following days were equally challenging. Eloan faced fierce storms, where howling winds and torrential rain made it nearly impossible to continue. During one of these storms, she lost her way and found herself on the edge of a cliff, looking down at the raging sea below. The waves crashed violently against the rocks, and the deafening sound made her heart race. She knew one wrong step could mean her death. With effort, she moved away from the cliff and found shelter under a rocky formation. There, she lit a small fire to warm herself and reflect on her journey. As the fire crackled softly, Eloan felt a familiar presence. A figure appeared at the cave entrance, an ancestral spirit, a Celtic warrior from ancient times. He did not speak, but his gaze conveyed a clear message of encouragement and strength. Eloan closed her eyes and meditated, connecting with the wisdom of the ancients. She felt a wave of energy course through her body, renewing her strength and determination. She knew she was not alone on this journey and that the spirits of the ancient warriors accompanied and guided her. When the storm finally passed, Eloan felt revitalized and ready to continue. The forest also tested her resilience with natural puzzles and navigation challenges. One day, she encountered a wide and deep river with no bridge in sight. The swift waters made crossing dangerous. Eloan took a deep breath and remembered the swimming techniques her father had taught her. With courage, she plunged into the icy waters and began to swim, fighting against the current. Every movement was a battle against exhaustion and cold, but she did not give up. When she finally reached the other shore, Alolan was exhausted but triumphant. She allowed herself a brief rest before continuing, feeling stronger and more determined than ever. She knew that each challenge overcome brought her closer to her goal and made her more prepared to face the approaching threat. Alolan found temporary refuge in a protected clearing where rare flowers grew in abundance. There, she rested and regained her strength, reflecting on the challenges she had faced and those yet to come. She knew the journey would be long and difficult, but she was determined to protect her home and people, no matter what she faced along the way. As Alolan continued her journey, she began to encounter magical beings that helped her understand more about the threat she faced. On a calm morning, she came across a small village of fairies hidden among the trees. The fairies, with their shimmering wings and melodic laughter, welcomed her warmly. They lived in harmony with nature, their homes built within giant flowers and hollow tree trunks. The fairy leader, a wise one named Lyriel, listened intently to Alolan's story and offered her help. Lyriel spoke of an ancient prophecy mentioning a young elf destined to save the forest from great darkness. The fairies gave Alolan a special potion made from the petals of rare flowers and morning dew drops, which would give her strength and clarity in times of need. Encouraged by the fairies' help, Alolan continued her journey. In a sunlit clearing, she met an old druid named Brianane who lived reclusively in a moss-covered cabin. Brianane was known for his wisdom and knowledge of ancient magics. He shared old stories and forgotten knowledge, revealing secrets about the origin of the evil threatening Bride Forest. Brianane spoke of a dark entity that had been sealed in the earth's depths by Celtic heroes long ago. However, the seal was weakening, and the entity was trying to escape to spread darkness and destruction. The druid gave Alolan a special amulet, saying it would protect and guide her on her journey. Grateful, Alolan left with renewed determination, knowing she was not alone. During her travels, Alolan also met a majestic unicorn named Ailby. The unicorn, with its snow-white coat and gleaming horn, was a creature of great wisdom and power. Ailby offered Alolan advice on finding the path to the heart of darkness and defeating the dark entity. The unicorn also gave Alolan a magical feather from its mane, which could be used to summon help in moments of despair. Deeply thankful to Ailby, Alolan continued her journey, feeling strengthened by the blessings of the magical creatures. She knew that each encounter made her more prepared for the final battle that was approaching. The journey was long and full of challenges, but Alolan was determined to protect her home and people, no matter what she faced along the way. As Alolan advanced on her journey, the air around her seemed to grow heavier and denser. She knew she was nearing the heart of the darkness, where she would face her greatest test. The landscape became gloomier, with twisted trees and an unsettling silence that filled the air. Alolan felt a chill run down her spine, but she stayed firm in her determination. Then she found a dark cave, its entrance marked by ancient runes glowing faintly. Alolan knew this was the place where the evil entity was sealed. Taking a deep breath, she entered the cave, feeling the oppressive presence of darkness around her. With each step, the shadows seemed to close in on her, whispering words of despair and doubt. However, Alolan remembered the encouraging words of her magical friends and the ancestral spirits who accompanied her. She held tightly to the amulet given by Brianane and moved forward with determination. The cave opened into a vast chamber where the evil entity awaited, shrouded in a pulsating darkness. The evil entity, known as Dorkadas, was a force of pure darkness and malevolence. Its form was amorphous, constantly shifting and pulsing with dark, dense energy. Its eyes, red as embers, fixed on Alolan, emitting a deep, primal hatred. Dorkadas' presence made the air around Alolan vibrate with palpable tension, as if the very fabric of reality was being distorted by its malevolence. The battle that followed was intense and exhausting. Alolan used all her combat and magical skills to face the entity. Each strike seemed to drain her energy, but she refused to give up. The light from the amulet shone brightly, repelling the darkness. Dorcata's roared in fury as it tried to subdue Alolan, hurling sharp shadows like blades and clouds of despair that tried to engulf her. Alolan fought with fierce determination, knowing that defeat would mean not just her death, but the destruction of everything she loved. She remembered her mother's lessons about inner strength and the importance of never losing hope. With each passing moment, the battle grew more desperate, and Alolan's strength began to wane. In a moment of despair, Alolan remembered the magical feather Ailby had given her. She held it tightly and invoked the unicorn's aid. A radiant glow filled the cave, and Ailby appeared, its majestic presence bringing new vigor to Alolan. Ailby, with its shining horn, cast a beam of pure light at Dorcata's, causing it visible pain. The entity's roar echoed through the cave, and the darkness around it faltered. With renewed strength, Alolan and Ailby fought together against Dorcata's. The union of their energies created a luminous barrier that the evil entity couldn't penetrate. Alolan channeled all her magic and courage, feeling more powerful than ever. She knew this was the decisive moment, the crucial test of her journey. Dorcata's, weakened by the combined light of Alolan and Ailby, began to retreat. The cave trembled with the force of the confrontation, and the runes on the walls glowed intensely. Alolan saw an opportunity and, with a cry of determination, cast a final spell to seal Dorcata's back into the depths of the earth. Light enveloped the evil entity, and with a final roar, Dorcata's was sucked into the ground, disappearing into the darkness. Alolan fell to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Ailby gently touched her shoulder with its horn, healing her wounds and renewing her energy. The battle was won, but Alolan knew her journey wasn't complete. The darkness had been contained, but balance needed to be restored. Alolan left the cave and returned to the Forest of Bride, where she was greeted with joy and gratitude by her people. Elves, fairies, and other magical creatures celebrated her courage and determination. Alolan knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she was confident that, with the help of her friends and her inner strength, she could protect her home and maintain harmony between worlds. As Alolan returned to the Forest of Bride, she knew the threat of Dorcata's could re-emerge if she didn't take additional measures to protect her home. She needed allies to help her maintain the forest's security and strengthen the protected enchantments. She decided to seek alliances with other magical communities and powerful beings who could join her cause. Her first stop was the dwarf village of Gleam Dub, known for their skill in forging weapons and creating powerful enchantments. The dwarves, led by Thorin, were a reserved people but respected those who demonstrated courage and honor. Alolan told them about the battle against Dorcata's and the need to strengthen the forest's defenses. Thorin, impressed by Alolan's determination, agreed to help. The dwarves would forge weapons and protective amulets for the elves and other forest creatures. In return, Alolan promised to share the knowledge of magical plants and healing potions from her mother, Niamh. Thus, an alliance was formed, based on mutual trust and the desire to protect their sacred lands. Alolan also sought help from the nature spirits, ancient entities inhabiting the forests and rivers. These spirits were wise and powerful, capable of controlling the elements and offering protection against supernatural threats. In a sacred ritual, Alolan invoked the nature spirits, asking for their help and guidance. The spirits responded to Alolan's call, appearing as ethereal forms of light and energy. They recognized the purity of her heart and the sincerity of her request. In exchange for their help, the nature spirits asked Alolan to commit to protecting the forest and preserving its natural balance. She vowed to do so, and the spirits agreed to strengthen the protected enchantments around the Forest of Bride. As she continued to form alliances, Alolan encountered a tribe of warriors known as the Fianna, led by the brave Fiann Mac Cumhail. The Fianna were famous for their bravery and combat skills, always ready to defend their lands against any threat. Alolan explained the situation and asked for their help in patrolling the forest borders and facing any danger that might arise. Fiann, admiring Alolan's courage, accepted her request. He assigned a group of his best warriors to join the elves and protect the Forest of Bride. Together, they developed defense strategies and trained together, strengthening bonds of camaraderie and trust. With the alliances formed and defenses reinforced, Alolan felt more prepared to face any threat that might arise. However, a lingering shadow hung over the forest, indicating that the final battle was yet to come. She knew Dorkadas wouldn't stay contained forever and that the darkness would seek revenge. Days passed in tense calm, with all of Alolan's allies constantly vigilant. The peace was only a facade, hiding the preparation for the impending battle. The dwarves forged powerful weapons and protective amulets, while the Fianna patrolled the borders and the nature spirits strengthened the enchantments. The forest was on alert, ready for the final confrontation. On a moonless night, the darkness finally attacked. Dorkadas, more powerful and furious than ever, erupted from the depths of the earth, bringing with him a horde of shadow creatures. The battle began with a deafening roar, and the forest was plunged into chaos. Alolan, leading the defense, fought alongside her allies, determined to protect her home. The shadow creatures attacked in waves, trying to break through the elves and their allies' defenses. The dwarves, with their enchanted weapons, bravely faced the creatures, while the Fianna warriors fought with strength and agility. The nature spirits used their power to control the elements, creating barriers of wind and fire that kept the darkness at bay. Alolan, at the heart of the battle, used her magical skills to confront Dorkadas directly. The evil entity, enraged, launched devastating attacks, trying to crush Alolan's resistance. She, however, stood firm, remembering the encouraging words of her magical friends and ancestral spirits. The battle seemed endless, with both sides suffering losses and injuries. However, the courage and determination of Alolan and her allies began to turn the tide. With each blow struck, the light from Alolan's amulet shone more intensely, repelling the darkness and weakening Dorkadas. In a moment of desperation, Dorkadas launched a final attack, gathering all his darkness into a single blow. Alolan, feeling the overwhelming force of the entity, raised the amulet and invoked Ailby's magical feather. A beam of pure light emanated from the feather, striking Dorkadas and dispersing the darkness in a blinding glow. With a final roar, Dorkadas was finally defeated, his malevolent form dissipating into the air. The battle was over, and the Forest of Bride was saved. Alolan, exhausted but triumphant, looked around and saw her allies celebrating the victory. She knew this battle had strengthened their bonds and that together they could face any challenge. After the battle, the Forest of Bride began to heal. The trees blossomed again, and the rivers ran clearer than ever. The presence of darkness had been completely eradicated, and peace reigned once more. Alolan, now recognized as a great heroine, reflected on her journey and the lessons learned. She knew her life would never be the same. The experience had transformed her, strengthening her spirit and heart. Alolan understood the depth of her connection with nature and the importance of protecting the balance between worlds. She felt grateful for the allies she had found and the friendships she had cultivated along the way. In time, Alolan took on a leadership role among the elves, guiding her people with wisdom and compassion. She continued to work closely with the dwarves, the Fianna, and the nature spirits, ensuring that the Forest of Bride remained a safe and sacred refuge for all magical creatures. Rituals and celebrations in the forest became even more significant, with all inhabitants honoring the courage and unity that had saved their home. The Tree of Life, at the heart of the forest, bloomed like never before, its leaves shining with a soft light that reminded everyone of the triumph of light over darkness. Alolan, sitting in the shade of the Tree of Life, reflected on her journey and the choices she had made. She knew there would still be challenges in the future, but she felt ready to face them with courage and determination. With the support of her friends and allies, she was confident she could protect the forest and maintain harmony between worlds. And so, the legend of Alolan, the brave elf who faced the darkness and saved the Forest of Bride, was told and retold for generations. Her name became synonymous with bravery and hope, inspiring others to follow her example and fight for what is right and true. The Forest of Bride remained a symbol of peace and magic, a reminder that, even in the darkest hours, light will always prevail. Good night and enchanted dreams.